Global Publishing presents Cash Flow with Ron LeGrand.
Okay, let's move on to pre-screening. As I said earlier, I intentionally put pre-screening behind constructing and presenting. I hope you can see why now, because as we go through pre-screening, you'll see that if I didn't know how to construct an offer, I really wouldn't know what to ask or the answers to the objections. I wouldn't know what objections to answer or how to answer them if I didn't know how I was going to buy. And if I don't know how I'm going to sell, I really don't know how I'm going to buy. What we really just did was go through how we could sell, which backed us then to how we could buy. And to recap, there's only a few ways you can sell. You can always sell for cash, meaning your buyer goes out and gets a new loan. That's the standard, conventional wisdom way to sell a house. That's what every realtor in the country and every builder wants to happen. They want somebody to go qualify for a loan. So they find people with good credit and down payments, preferably, and they take them in front of lenders and they get them a loan. Then they get a great big fat check, all the underlying debt gets paid off, and the difference is their profit. That's the way real estate is thought of in our society. That's what sellers think will happen when they call you. And some of them will not deal with you when they discover that's not what will happen. That is conventional wisdom. However, there's a whole subculture of people out there who are buying houses in alternative methods because of the real estate entrepreneurs who are making those methods available to them. And some creative realtors, I might add. By the way, getting trained by me will make you a very, very sharp real estate entrepreneur, but it'll also make you a very, very sharp real estate agent, because you know more than 99% of the agents will ever learn with the training that they go through. If you can spot places within your business to apply these techniques and offer some solutions to these sellers that other agents aren't offering, you've got an edge on your marketplace. There's no law that says your seller has got to sell for cash. And you're under no obligation if they sell with owner financing and the buyer later defaults. You're under an obligation to protect that seller the best you can, but you're not responsible for making decisions for them. Realtors who get it can open up a whole new marketplace of opportunity that their peers don't get and never would get. You see, that's the difference between the realtor mentality and the investor mentality. And by the way, that's sort of like being from Ohio or Kentucky. They're always at odds with each other. Realtors don't like investors for obvious reasons. We're taking away some of their commissions. Investors don't use realtors very much. And in fact, the only time you're going to be using realtors for the most part is when you're paying cash for listed properties, which is fine. You make an all-cash offer, realtor gets checked, everybody lives happily ever after. But you're not going to use realtors when you're buying houses subject to. A realtor in good conscience cannot advise their client to sell you the house and leave the loan in their own name. Who could blame them? Because they might come back on them. A realtor is almost never going to tell a seller to option their house to you. Now, some realtors do advocate seller financing because there's nothing wrong with that. That's a standard traditional way, very seldom used, but still understood mainly by most realtors. As long as you get a huge down payment, they're happy. And why do we need a huge down payment? Because 6 or 7% of it's going to them, correct. And they want to make sure that they want to feel like they got their seller adequately protected. There's really a happy marriage there that most realtors will not look and see. In fact, if you'll take a look at some of the laws that are being passed around our country or proposed, you'll find that behind them are realtor associations pushing them. It's too bad, too, because if we could somehow come together, we could do a lot of cool things. I mean as a big unit. Because we don't really interfere with realtors. The properties we normally buy are not going to get listed. They don't understand that. And some of the properties we buy after they've already been listed and they've had their shot at them. We don't steal deals from realtors. We don't go behind their back. We don't need to. Our market is FSBOs, most of which they'll never get to or see. Could we probably buy some houses that they might list? You bet. But could they also list some houses that we might buy? You bet. It doesn't matter. The market is big enough for everybody. But unfortunately, that's not the attitude. I don't have anything against realtors. In fact, I used to be one. I do have a problem with some of the attitude I get from some of them because they misunderstand what we do. And there's no reason to. There's plenty of business for everybody. Now, what brought all that up? I don't know, but sounded good. But let me finish that conversation about realtors because it's important. We're not going after listed properties to take over the debt. Make a note of that. Do not even start down that path. You're wasting your time. We're not looking at listed properties to option them, lease option them, or buy them with owner financing. Sometimes you may buy them with owner financing if you want to put up a sizable down payment. We may use realtors to buy junkers for cash. And I will tell you that even that is a tough road to hoe for one big reason. Wherever there are junkers listed in the MLS, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people who have access to that system. Therefore, the property is on the open marketplace, and it's fair game for everybody that gets into the MLS that's interested in junkers. Anytime you have a property with that much exposure, the price is going to go up. The easier a property is to find, the more it costs. Let me say that again. The easier a property is to find, the more it costs. Just like HUD and VA repos. For the most part, you're wasting your time because they're fair game for our society who will pay more than we will pay because they can fix them up on a weekend and live in them. Now, if they're extremely ugly, they may be worthy of your time. But they got to be really, really ugly, or you're going to pay way too much. They're just too easy to get at. Ergo, we come back to the yellow letter, where we get to mail a letter into a segment of our society, most of which don't even have a house on the market and didn't even know they were ready to sell till they got our letter. Most of the houses you're going to buy are not on the market. You will see no signs in their front yards for the most part. You're not competing with anybody. You're mailing to a list, and there's probably not anybody else mailing to that list unless it's pre-foreclosures. They're getting a bunch of mail. You're never going to have to worry about competition because there's nobody competing with you, and if they are, they're not doing it at the same time, the same way, on the same day. The beautiful part about the Yellow Letter program is you get to pick and choose the segment of society you mail to, and you get to play that game and move it around, and you don't ever have to worry about somebody bidding on your property because nobody else is there. You literally have eliminated your so-called competition. And just for the record, most of your competition is not your competition anyway. Most of the people out there buying houses in our society today are clueless. They buy a book, they go to a 3-hour seminar, and they're real estate geniuses. All they do is make it easier for you to buy. They go make a mess, you come in, clean up mess. You get the deal, they get the grief. People who won't take time to get trained are going to pay the price for that lack of training. And they're doing it in the School of Hard Knocks. If you're in this room or you listen to these CDs, you've probably already been to the School of Hard Knocks in some way. Most of the people who come into us have already had experiences with others who teach real estate and other courses and other seminars, and by the time we get them, they're kind of wore out and frazzled and screwed up. So it's my job to get your head on straight and actually get checks coming into your life. And I take my job seriously. And the only way you're going to get those checks coming into your life is to do the things at work, do them systematically, do them in order, and do them in the right place with the right prospects. And if you do that, and you learn the system and you implement it in its simplistic form, you will start making money in spite of yourself. You will quit chasing dead ends, trying to push a rope uphill with your nose, and doing all the stupid stuff that everybody insists on doing fresh out of a class because they will not invest in their own education and they will not take the time to learn the business they're trying to perfect. See, that's not the way we're built, is it? We're built to blunder through. I know. I did the same thing. We're about to talk about how to pre-screen the difference between a suspect and a prospect. If there's anything you must learn early in your career, it's this. Because if you don't, you're probably not going to be around long. You're going to find a way that the business has failed you. Because you're chasing people who would not sell you a house if you had all the right answers, said all the right things, and did all the right things. Even if you do, people who want to sell will not sell to you unless you're willing to pay retail price and probably buy it cash. By the way, if you're willing to do that, you're going to get an awful lot of offers accepted. I don't know what you're going to do with them when you get them. But if you want to get a lot of offers accepted, just cater to the seller and forget why you're a buyer. Easy to get offers accepted. It's a little harder to get the right offers accepted that turn into great big fat checks for you. And the first thing you got to understand and get from your head to your heart is you are dealing with the minority, not the majority. You cannot please everybody who calls you with a house for sale. In fact, you cannot please most of them. If you don't internalize that, it'll eat at you. Because you'll spend all your time trying to make a deal where there's no deal and never will be a deal. You can't make unmotivated people motivated. You can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit. Write that down. Ron said there. It took me a long time to learn the difference between people that I should be dealing with and people that I shouldn't. There was really nobody teaching me the difference. I had to learn it on my own. It took me years. Didn't take me long to learn the difference between ugly and pretty, though, I can tell you that. That was easy for me to spot. But most people coming in, they'll go do something to get sellers calling them, and then they get these leads. And they'll do everything they can to turn that lead into a deal, when in reality they should have spotted within the first 5 seconds that there is no deal coming. Therefore, all of their time gets sucked up on collecting information and visiting properties that they'll never buy. Because they spend so much time chasing dead ends, they miss golden opportunities that come at them, and they don't focus that time doing the things that will produce them big checks. If you get in the habit of working on all of the wasted leads and don't understand the difference between a suspect and a prospect, it's no wonder that you do all this work and spend all this time and making no money. You must learn to tell the difference between a suspect and a prospect within seconds of contact. In fact, I'm implementing a 10-second rule. You have 10 seconds to determine whether it's a suspect or a prospect. And if you haven't figured that out in 10 seconds, giving you another 10 minutes ain't going to help any. Because it is easy if you know what you're looking for. And I yesterday went over a handful of ways to buy properties. There's only a handful. You can sell them for cash, you can lease option them, you can sell them with owner financing, you can move in them, or for some weird reason you can just straight rent them. That's your exits. And if you see those exits, now you're going to have to be able to take a look at, here's the facts, how would I buy this, and then what would I do with it if I did buy it? And you should be able to do that very quickly with a little bit of practice. And many struggle with that. Some struggle with that for years. They never stop to analyze what they're struggling with. Well, if you can see how you're going to buy, because you instantly know how you're going to sell, then it makes it easier for you to look at a few pieces of information and determine if there's any chance you can buy based on that information. So, in your book, we start by saying, never buy a property unless you get free equity or know how to create it shortly thereafter. That in itself ought to tell you one thing. We ain't paying retail price for property. There's only one house you're going to pay retail for, and that's the one you live in. And you're going to pay that because your spouse has got to have that house. No other house, that house. When your spouse wants that house, all common sense goes out the window. It has nothing to do with business. It has to do with pleasure. Okay, I'll forgive you if you have to pay retail for the house you live in. But that's the only one you have to pay retail for. If you don't get free equity, you have no reason to buy real estate. Unless you're fresh out of one of them real estate seminars that says, go buy real estate, pay retail price, and hold on, and the value will go up. Well, they might be right, but I don't like that plan. I grew up with that plan. That's what they taught when I was growing. You know, when I started, that was the plan. Then come 1986 when they took all the tax advantages away from owning real estate. Whoa, was that a fun time? It was a fun time for me. Wasn't fun time for all of those who paid retail price hoping the value would go up. In fact, a lot of empires tumbled in the mid-'80s when the IRS signed one regulation changing the tax rules, of which they can do at any time, you know. If you just remember that you're not paying retail, it ought to help you make most of your pre-screening really easy. Because isn't it true that most people who call you want retail price for their house or close to it? Yes? Yep. All right. Then isn't it easy to pre-screen out the duds at lightning speed? Yes, it is. So number one rule, if they're not offering me free equity, game over. Hello. How hard was that? If they're asking retail price, we're done. Well, how do I know if they're asking retail price? Well, one of the questions you're going to ask, it's right on your script and it's right on Pat Live's script. If I had your house appraised, what do you think it would appraise for? You'll be shocked to know that people with beautiful homes know what they're worth. And until you have some evidence to prove differently, you're going to take their estimation of value to be the value. You've got no other choice. You're not going to be on the telephone with somebody figuring out what their house is worth, checking their comps. And frankly, it's not even worth your effort to do that with every lead you get coming in the front door. You thinker brains will. You analytical personalities will. You engineers will. You CPAs will, because you just can't help yourself. The thought of letting a deal go through because you didn't dot every I and cross every T just makes you sleepless. But I will tell you from experience, if you got people who own pretty houses in pretty neighborhoods, They got a handle on the value. They're not always right. Sometimes they're way too high. Sometimes they're a little low. But they know. So when somebody tells you their house is worth $250,000, it's worth $250,000 till you have evidence that says it isn't. So now, when you ask them, what do they want? And they say, I want $250,000. We have nothing else to discuss. I don't even need to know what the loan balance is. I don't even want to know if the house is in good condition, bad condition. Sure don't need to know how many square feet's in it or how many bedrooms and baths are in it or what school district it's in. And I don't give a rat's behind what color the kitchen is. Because I'm never buying this house. Therefore, I don't need to collect a bunch of facts on it. When the ARV, after repaired value, and the asking is the same, the deal is dead. Bury it quickly. And it won't take 10 seconds. You're not going to revive the deal. You can't breathe life into it by giving it artificial respiration. A seance will not bring it back to life. A lengthy conversation with a seller is not going to change the fact they want market value for their house. Even if you get them to come down to what? From 100% to 95%. Wow. Now I'm excited. If they were to put the house on the market and list it with a realtor, they'd give up 7% plus sales price, plus sales cost. That's 10% gone like that. If they're not willing to come down to that 10%, what do I want to do business with them? You know why they haven't listed it with a realtor? Because they're too cheap to pay the commission. How am I going to squeeze money out of this deal? And even if I can, I promise you, you're not going to like it. You're dealing with an unmotivated seller. Well, but what if they'll owner finance? I don't care. They've already pissed me off. I ain't going back. I'm not paying 100% for the price of the property, even if I get no interest and no payments. I just can't make myself do it. I just can't. I got to have some free equity. And if I can't get free equity, I'm dealing with somebody who wants retail price. Again, I can't hold it against them because I'm going to be just like them when I put my house back on the market. Folks, you got to build in your profit the day you buy it. Your profit is built in the day you buy. You make money the day you buy. You realize that gain the day you sell. Don't ever forget that. Residential or commercial. You may also see opportunity where you can build in equity by discounting or releasing liens from the property after you buy it with a little bit of training. We have a 3-day paper power boot camp where we talk about buying defaulted mortgages and releasing and removing liens from properties. And that it's all about paper attached to the property. Paper meaning mortgages, deeds of trust, and liens and judgments. If you got a property that's loaded up with mortgages, and especially if they're in default and it's got liens on it of all kinds, then you should be able to spot a whole nother opportunity there, even if it's got as much or more owed on it than it's worth. Because you can now buy the property for free and then go to work and discounting all the debt and creating a bunch of free equity based on what you know. May include short sale, may not. Maybe there's liens and judgments on it that you can discount down to a fraction. I mean a nickel or dime of what's owed on them. Or maybe you can release them from the property, as we'll discuss later on in this course. If you see that opportunity, then you will not turn your back on that property even though it's financed 100%. If you don't see it, you will. But anytime you got a property that the seller's asking 100% and the loans are current, it's over. It's over. If they're asking 100% but they're not asking for any money because they just got a big mess and you can clean up the mess, then maybe there's a good chance you'll make a profit. And that's the only exception. Okay, there are 4 things that you must know before you can pre-screen a house. And you need to know all 4 of them to do an effective pre-screening job. I just told you that if the ARV and the asking is the same, the deal is dead. And it is. But there are going to be times when the ARV and the loan are very close. And you might be willing to take over the loan even though you do not get a lot of equity. The seller will yield on what money they expected to get out of the property just to get rid of the debt. If I got a $200,000 house and I got a $180,000 loan, as far as I'm concerned, the ARV and the asking are the same. Just for the record, if the ARV and the asking are within 10%, they're the same to me. I might be willing to go in and take over a $180,000 debt on a $200,000 house if the house is in excellent condition and if the payments are nice and reasonable and I know I can easily cover them with a rent-to-own deal. And I like the area. And I like the house. I do that all day long. I might even do it on a $190,000 debt. If I got a sweet underlying payment and I got a beautiful home and I got an easy rent-to-own deal. Because first, my $200,000 house is not a $200,000 house to me. It's at least a $210,000 house. And if I'm in a good market, in a good area, in a good home, it might be a $220,000 house. Why? I said so. And if the market agrees, I'm right. And if the market doesn't agree, and I've rarely seen that happen when you make it easy to buy, but if the market doesn't agree, worst case, I've got a $200,000 beautiful home that I bought for $190,000 that I get to depreciate for 27 and a half years to lower my taxes. And just so you know what that means. If I paid $190,000 for the house, as far as I'm concerned, the land's worth about $20,000. Now, my CPA might not agree with that. They might want to give the land more value. I want to give it less. Because you can't depreciate land. You can depreciate buildings. So if I paid $190,000 for a house and 20 of it's land, that means $170,000 of it is what? Buildings. Divide that by 27 and a half years, and you've got approximately $7,000 a year that you can go make on your job and not pay taxes on just because you own that house that you got for free. And what's wrong with that? That's $2,000 or $3,000 a year you're going to save in whole cold hard income taxes. Plus, you get to get the upfront down payment from your tenant buyer, $10,000 or so. Plus, you get a monthly spread, and you've got an asset that's appreciating, hopefully, while you get to depreciate it with no risk. It's not a killer deal, but it's a doable deal for many, especially if it's one of their first. So when the ARV and the loan balance are close, it doesn't mean I won't do the deal if the rest of the conditions are right. And again, the house must be in excellent condition and the loan must be a sweet loan to take over. And of course, I can do it for nothing. And in this case, I'm going to get the seller to make the next 3 or 4 months payments in the process. Because if they won't, I probably won't. They got no choice. One good thing about houses with small equities in them, they got no choice. What else are they going to do with them? Sometimes the realtors won't even list them because they can't see how they're going to get paid. So you're going to have to decide whether they're worth your while or not. The 4 things that I must know are the ARV, the after repaired value. Folks, you cannot intelligently make an offer on anything or buy anything if you don't have any idea what it's worth. You can, but you shouldn't. For anybody to buy a piece of real estate with no clue what it's worth is someone heading for a seminar, a school of hard knocks. The seller has told you what it's worth. You can easily verify that before you buy it with some simple comps. If that becomes difficult, you can always get it appraised. A few $100 will verify your assumptions. Money well spent. But you must know the ARV. While you're pre-screening, the only place you're going to get the ARV is from the seller's mouth. Seller says it's worth 200, it's worth 200. If you don't know the ARV, you have no basis for coming to a conclusion as to whether you can buy it or not. I mean, surely you wouldn't go buy anything else that you have no idea what it's worth, would you? Would you, ladies? Surely you wouldn't go buy something like jewelry if you had no idea what it was worth, would you? Yes, you would. Because you never have any idea what it's worth. You only are told what you're told. You have no way to prove it. Well, that's not true with houses. It's easy to substantiate value of houses. Go back to your red course, and there's several ways in there to find comps. All that fails, but you won't. You can always hire an appraiser. Second thing you must know is the asking price. If you don't know the asking price, you've got nothing to work with. And you should never, ever, ever, ever make an offer on a property without first finding out what the asking price is. 95% of the time, you won't have any trouble with that. Every once in a while you will, because they just won't tell you what they want. If they won't tell you what they want, you should not blurt out what you'll pay. You should dance a while. Well, I have to know what you want to determine whether I have any interest. Well, I don't know. Come make me an offer. Look at my house. Well, I can't come look at your house till I have any reason to believe I can buy it, and I can't buy it till you tell me what you want. What do you want? Well, I'm just not sure. Come make me an offer. How about $1? $1? No way. I need at least 20 grand to move. Okay. If you'd have said that 10 minutes ago, I would have known I couldn't come look. Or, fine, why didn't you tell me that earlier? Now we deal with it. Never give in. Find out what they want first. Now your exceptions to that rule, of course, are if you're buying a house from a bank, well, they're going to tell you what they want. But if you're buying a short sale deal, for example, if you're negotiating a short sale, aren't you really making a cash offer for the property? Yes. They're not going to make you an offer. You're going to have to make the offer to the bank. So there are a few times when you don't have any choice. When you're buying a second mortgage, they're not going to make you an offer. You're going to have to make them an offer. But for the most part, you should never, ever open your mouth and tell someone what you will pay before they tell you what they want. In fact, if you'll turn the page, there's a big warning. It says, warning, tennis shoes don't taste good. Or put another way, shut up. Shut up. Don't ever be first to name the price. If you will remember that and utilize it for the rest of your life with everything you buy, you will be so proud of yourself because you're going to save so much money it's going to impress you beyond belief. It applies to everything. Personal property, real estate, everything you buy from today forward. Always ask what they want before you tell them what you'll pay, unless you're negotiating with me. Because you won't get me to tell you what I want. So, and most of the time, sometimes I do. Sometimes you just don't care, and here's what I want. Take it, Can we practice shutting up? For many of you, it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of work, truly. I know, I made the same mistake. First few years I was in business, I just could not keep my mouth shut. I wanted to go into these sellers' homes and impress them with all my knowledge. I insisted on doing a real estate seminar everywhere I went. I learned over time, they didn't call me to get a seminar. They called me to buy their house, thank you. They don't want a seminar. In fact, they don't even want to know how to solve their problem. They want me to solve it for them. See, after a few years of telling people how easy it was to fix their own problem because I couldn't keep my mouth shut, I never seen no one of them do it. And then I got it. They're looking for the path of least resistance. They're not looking to learn anything. You remember that when you walk into somebody's house. And shut the hell up. What comes out of your mouth will determine what goes into your bank account. And I'm telling you, the less that comes out of your mouth, the bigger your bank account's going to grow. And what we do is we get in this habit of answering questions before they're asked, assuming that they're coming. And if you practice the opposite of that a while, you'll be shocked to learn, well, golly, they didn't ask. Therefore, I don't have to answer. Shut up. Because every time you answer a question that they didn't ask, it creates another question they didn't think of. Before you know it, you're in there for an hour answering questions because you started it. When you're trying to find out what somebody wants for something, the best thing you can do is say, what's the least you could take? And then here's the hard part. Shut up. And don't get diarrhea of the mouth. And sit there in a cold, dead silence that seems like it lasts for hours until you get an answer. But what do most people do? What's the least you could take? 2-second break. Don't even give them a chance to think about their answer. When you're determining the ARV and the asking, if you don't have the asking, you got to go back and get the asking. So if they've called Pat Live and Pat Live don't have that blank filled in, what do you got to do? You got to call them, assuming what? Assuming they said yes when they were asked if they had a house for sale. Probably won't do any good to call them if they don't have a house for sale. So you got to call them and you got to get the asking. And you're going to have quite a few of those. And I'm telling you, do not ignore the ones that come to you because the blanks are empty. We have learned, with trial and error, that a lot of people just will not fill in the blanks because they know they're dealing with an answering service. They want you to call them. Somebody's got to call them. You will buy 1 or 2 or 3 houses a month from the blank sheets that have a house for sale if you'll call them back or get somebody else to. Remember yesterday we hiring somebody at $3 a sheet to call them back for us, right? Yep. So we don't even have to do that anymore. All right, so you must know the ARV and you must know the asking. Will that eliminate right there most of your deals? Yes, it will. Then you must know the loan balance. You cannot determine whether you got a deal or not if you have no idea what's owed on the property. You're not paying cash. If you were paying cash, it might not be an issue, but you're not. You're taking over debt. Therefore, you must know what debt you're taking over. And you also, even if the cash deal is in the loop, how are you going to look if your cash offer is well below what they owe because you didn't ask what they owed? You look like an idiot fresh out of seminar somewhere. You must know the loan balance. You cannot move forward without it. If it's not there, go get it. There's nothing to discuss till you do. If the loan balance is low and the asking is up here, I know I got a gap to fill. If the loan balance is high and the ARV is just above that and the asking is the loan balance or even the ARV, I know I probably got one I can just go get the deed on because what they really want is debt relief. Now let me say that again. If I've got a small equity, I know I probably got an easy go get the deed deal if I want it. If I've got a large equity, then I must have a gap, a very nice gap between the ARV and the asking to be interested. If I don't have a gap between the ARV and the asking, I got somebody who wants to sell cash and I'm out of here. And they want to sell retail. If I have a gap between the ARV and the asking of at least 10-15% of the ARV, right out of the seller's mouth, right out of the gate, they're telling somebody they don't even know, I think it's worth $220, I'll take $195. What do I know just by looking at those two numbers? I know I got a seller who needs to sell, not one who wants to sell. People who want to sell want retail. People who need to sell will give away equity. And the quicker you learn that, the quicker you can pass the 10-second test. It's that gap that gets me to spot opportunity in the looming. So I must know that loan balance. If the loan balance is very close to the asking price and I got equity or I don't got equity above it. In other words, if the asking price and the loan is substantially less than the ARV, but they're asking closer to the loan balance, I got a deal. They're willing to give away that equity just to get rid of the debt. That's a slam dunker. But if I've got a great big gap between the loan balance and the asking, and yet I still have a gap between the asking and the ARV, I also know I may have a deal. But I've got a problem that instantly crops into my mind that I've got to fix on this deal. What is it? I've got to figure out how to get them paid, that gap between the loan and the asking, don't I? Okay. If you recall, there's only 2 or 3 ways to do that. If you remember, one way was to take over their debt, give them a little bit of money or none, and pay them that difference at whatever we finally agree upon later, secured by a second mortgage on their house with no payments or no interest. Isn't that one way? Yep. Okay. Another way was, okay, they're asking for this big gap. What's the least you could take for your equity if I paid it all in cash now and took over your debt? Remember that? I'm going to go for a discount. Maybe I can put up $10,000 now and get myself $50,000 worth of equity and not have to deal with them later. Be happy to do that. Wouldn't you be happy to do that? That's what you got MasterCard for. Or, I got this big gap. They won't wait till later. They won't discount it now. The only other thing to do is, then will you refinance it, take your equity out now, and then I'll take over your debt. If they won't do that, I'm done. I've done my duty. And how long will it take to do my duty? I mean seconds on the telephone, guys. I'm not going to go out to the house and ask these questions. I'm going to ask these questions right on the telephone because I don't have any reason to go to the house if I don't get the positive answers I'm looking for. I'm not going to make them an offer on the phone. Did you hear me make them an offer? I did not discuss numbers, what I will pay you. You can't make an offer on the telephone for a house you haven't even seen unless the offer is, would you sell a house for what you owe on it? You don't be making up numbers on a house you haven't even seen yet. You just need to pave the way by saying, okay, you got all this equity. What's the least you could take for that equity if I paid it right now? Well, I'll come down $2,000. All right, next. If I did give you what you're asking or even close, would you take it later? Would you wait till I get paid for you to get paid? Well, no, I don't want to do that either. Okay, well then, last chance. You want to go ahead and refinance, pull your equity out now, and then I'll take over your debt. No, I don't do that either. Okay, we're done. Call me if things change. See how easy that was? That was easy for me. It'll be easier for you when you practice it a while too. Now, What if they call you and their payments in arrears? How are you going to know their payments in arrears if you don't know what they owe? You got to know what they owe, and right along with that question is, are your payments current or in arrears? If you look on your property information sheet, it's right on there with stars on it. See, that's part of what you owe. Okay? If their payments in arrears, what does that mean to you? It means heart rate increase. When their payments in arrears, the whole dynamic of the deal changes. Because you instantly assume we've got a seller who needs to sell, not wants to sell. And frankly, guys and gals, that makes me more willing to ask them more questions regardless of the front end numbers that I get. Even if they're asking retail price, I'm going to quiz them a little bit harder if I know their payments in arrears, because I know they're lying and they would love to find somebody who'll come in and pay them retail price, but I'm going to get down to the point where I know that, and they're going to know that's not me. And then we're either going to be in or out. You're going to find the conversation with people who have their payments in arrears a much easier conversation than those who don't. So the minute I see that, I see all I need to know to call them back. If I'm looking at this sheet from Pat Live and it says they're 3 months behind, it goes in the callback pile. I don't care whatever the rest of it says. I'm going to call back and get the facts and strike up a conversation, create a relationship with this person and see if there's a way I can help. Got that? If that sheet says that they are in bankruptcy or thinking of filing bankruptcy, or if it says they're going to leave soon regardless, or if it says they must sell within the next few days or the next couple of weeks, what do I see there? I see need to sell, not want to sell. So I'm looking at that page for those things to jump out at me. I want a gap between ARV and asking, or I want other indicators that lead me to believe they need to sell, not want to sell. Does everybody in the room get that now? Do all you listening to these CDs get that now? I want an answer. All right. You also must know whether it needs a major rehab or just a minor foo-foo. Because if it needs a major rehab, I mean, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 or more, it's going to change the dynamics of the whole deal. After you've got time to think through your exit strategy, you'll understand that. If it just needs a carpet cleaned and a couple $1,000s spent on it, I can get that done, and I can get that done quickly, and now I can make it a beautiful house, and very well that may be the problem why it hasn't sold. Realtors have a tough time showing people houses that smell like cat pee and getting them sold. People who live in the house don't smell it that much. They get used to it. I got 3 cats. Let me rephrase that. My wife has 3 cats. I can't tell you how many houses that I bought that smell like urine. And the minute I open that front door, I know immediately I'm buying this one. Because nobody else will. Cat urine turns me on, man. I'm telling you, I want. Boom. You see, that's why they're not selling it. And the realtor may not even have enough nerve to tell them that. The realtor's not going to tell you, your house stinks. Get it cleaned up. I don't like you. I'm going to pull a listing. The last realtor was nicer to me. Did she sell your house? No, well. You need to know if there's anything in the way of repairs that will stop that house from getting sold. You need to know it right up front. You don't need to know a dollar amount. I mean, come on. But you're not going to get a dollar amount on the telephone. But look, if they say, well, it really needs a new roof and it could use a paint job and the kitchen's about 35 years old and the carpet really needs to be replaced and actually the air conditioner's not working that well either. What does that tell you? This ain't no weekend cleanup job, is it? This is turning into a major rehab deal. Thousands of dollars worth of work. And sometimes they will say, well, you know, it needs some work. Well, what do you think it needs? Well, the kid opened the door and there's a little hole in the wall and I got to get that fixed. And my door squeaks a little bit and I've been meaning to get that fixed too. Well, how old's the roof? Oh, well, the roof's only 2 years old. Well, they think it needs work. It really doesn't need work. It just needs a little bit of stuff. You need to know. Does it sound like a major rehab needing thousands, or is it just some teensy-weensy little bit of work, or is it just a cleanup job? I mean, it's rare you're going to buy a house you don't have to do something to. I mean, we have. We bought quite a few, actually. But, you have to assume you got to do a little something to it, which makes a point for you having a cleanup crew ready to go. You need a cleanup crew, guys. And the cleanup crew should not be related to you. Let's take a $200,000 house with a $170,000 loan on it. House is in excellent condition. Payments are $1,220 on the loan, PITI. And the seller says, if you want it, come get it, I'm done. I'm leaving town Thursday. And you ask him, what kind of shape's in it? It's in good shape, don't need anything. Who would go get it? 10 of you. Let me start over. We have a $200,000 house. It's in excellent condition. It's got a $170,000 loan. The payments are current and the payments are low. And the seller says, if you want it, come get it. Who would go get it? That's better. For those of you on the CDs, all of them now that they understood the question. Okay. We got a $200,000 house. We got a $170,000 loan. We got a payment that is current. We got a payment that is low, but now we think it needs about $25,000 worth of work. Is it a different deal altogether? Yes, it is. On the first deal, my exit was easy. Go get house, install tenant buyer, or sell with owner finance, hopefully raise the price a little, get a down payment, get a monthly spread, and sit around and sing Kumbaya. Don't touch the house, be in and out in a matter of days, weeks at most. Don't put up any money, don't risk any money, don't guarantee any debt, don't make any promises. I go get me a piece of equity in a gorgeous house, and I offer it to the public or offer it to my buyer's list, and voila, I'm in, I'm out. In a few days, I got cash and a cash flow. Don't get much better than that. But now I got a different deal because of these repairs. Now I got these costly entanglements. Somebody needs to come up with the money to do the work. So I go take over this $170,000 debt. Now I spend $20,000 to do the rehab. What does that do to my exit strategy? It destroys it. Because A, I'm paying retail price for the property, aren't I? Yes. I'm paying retail and working to pay retail. That's a dumb idea. And anybody who would do that don't get it. They will later, but they don't now. Now, I might still go get the house because it's free. But if I go get the house, I know I'm thinking my exit is different. I'm going to sell a house as is, where is, or I'm not touching it. That means if I go take over this $170,000 debt, I might be lucky to get some owner-occupant to come in and give me $5,000 and take over my position. Because now they got to go do all that work. Totally different deal. It may not even be a deal worth doing for you at that point, whereas previously it was. And if you don't ask that one little question, called repairs, you will not know that till you get out there and open the front door and the cat urine blasts you backwards. And it means you just wasted a trip. And guys, I don't want you wasting trips. It's foolish for you to go running around all over town looking at houses you'll never buy. Well, I guess it won't hurt you any for a while, though, will it? In fact, how long have you got to do that?
90 days.
90 days. Right answer. So go look at all of them you can in 90 days and get it over with and get it out of your system. At least you learn your areas that way, don't you? Yes? Okay. So you got 90 days to go make a mess. All right. In your book, it says you must know those 4 things. And just by asking those 4 questions, there's a whole list of what you're going to learn just by asking those 4 questions. I'm on page 99. Is the seller willing to give some equity away? You know that because of the difference between the ARV and the asking. Is there enough spread for me to want to get involved? Well, that is a personal thing now. Some of you are going to require more low-hanging fruit than others. Is that okay? Is it okay that you turn away deals that you might have used to have taken when you were newer? It's not only okay, it's normal. The better you get at this, the more you will learn. You do not have to take all these things you could do. You better focus on the ones that will get you the biggest bang for the buck. And as soon as you get that figured out in residential, you're going to figure it out in commercial as well. Will repair costs eat up the equity, as I just got through describing? You'll know that when you get the answer to the repairs. Is a short sale prospect because the payments are behind or it's in foreclosure? So can I get free equity by discounting the loans? How will you know that? When you find out if the payments are in arrears and or if it's in foreclosure. It may be a short sale prospect when you find out whether it's got a first and a second on it. If it's a big second, it's probably a short sale prospect. If it's a big first, it probably isn't. And then you're asking yourself, when you find out how far behind they are, you're asking yourself, would I be willing to bring that much money to closing to bring the loan current based on the amount of equity that's in the house? A lot of equity? Answer yes. Small equity? Answer no. That fast. Because I can see the exit. Is it loaded with liens? I may get released or discounted. And I'm not talking about mortgages, I'm talking about liens and judgments and the like. When I see liens and judgments, I get excited because I know they're a goner for the asking. 50% discount offered before you even start negotiating. Whenever I see lawsuits and liens like medical liens and the like, or mechanics liens, I know, I got me a deal here that I can turn in to a sweet deal by getting rid of all these people who are going to take a huge discount. It's not a question of will they, it's how much will they take. Because they're not going to foreclose on this property. If they were going to, they'd already done it. Is it a very high-priced house that scares me to sleeplessness? And now how will I know that? I'll know it the minute I hear the ARV, won't I? If the ARV is $3 million and my pantyhose pucker up, and they will for a while, then I can determine quickly whether it's my cup of tea or not. Is the payment reasonable? If I got a $200,000 house with a $2,200 a month payment, do I have a problem? Yeah, your market's not going to pay that much rent, and I don't want to stretch it. Or do I have a problem? Let's see if we can get common sense in that example. Suppose I got a $200,000 house, I got a $2,200 payment, but there's only $140,000 owed on it because the seller's got lousy credit and he went out and refinanced it at 14% interest. Hello? Would I take over that payment? Yep. Let me start over. You guys going down the highway, you better pull over for this one. I got a $200,000 house. I got a $140,000 balance. I got a $2,200 payment. In fact, we'll make it even sweeter. It's 6 months behind. And the seller's about to bail. And they call you. And you ask them, would you sell it for what you owe on it? And they say, yeah, I'm leaving anyway. Who would want it? Oh, you would, okay. You're getting way too smart for me. Now, why would you want it? You can't put a lease option tenant in that house. The payment's too high. Can you? You can refinance it. Smack him. Punch him right in the gut for me. That is a stupid thing to say to me. That is not an option. All right? Can you get the seller to refinance it? No, they're 6 months behind. Can you put it in on a lease option? Well, you can if you get enough money to bring the payments, but will you automatically know you're going to have a negative cash flow? Well, what if I put it out on a lease option and I only give them 6 months to close on it? Hello, common sense. Would you pay a $500 a month negative cash flow to get at a $60,000 check within 6 months? Okay, then what happened to the common sense before you answer? Could I sell it on owner financing? Well, if I do, my payment coming in is going to be less than my payment going out, isn't it? Yes? But what if my intent is to sell it on owner financing and then sell off the note to pay off the underlying debt and cash out? Now all of a sudden the $2,200 payment doesn't matter, does it? Hello? Common sense again. Or could I just buy it, take over the $2,200 a month payment, and sell it to a cash buyer who's going to go get a new loan and make myself $60,000? Is there anything wrong with that? Yes. IRS gets a third of it. So, you got to be able to look past the front end to see the exit, to make a decision whether you want to go in the entrance, don't you? So if you can analyze the exit, because you're really good at knowing those exit strategies, it makes it easier if you make intelligent decisions up front. See, about half of you in the room right now would have walked away from that deal. You're not kidding me any. I know you would have. Because all you can think about is that payment. You don't think about how to fix the payment. You just think about the payment. All right, there's 3 examples of getting the deed, which make up 90% of your pretty house transactions. We've gone over them. I'm going to recap them again very quickly. Number 1, get the deed with little or no money. That's a big one. Number 2, get the deed and take over the loans. Could be 1 loan, 2 loans. But you're still taking over the debt with little or no money. 3, get the deed and pay the seller later with a second mortgage. You're taking over 1 debt, you're taking over 2 debts with little or no money, or you're going to get the deed and give the seller back a second mortgage later. And a close 4th is get the deed and give the seller a discounted amount of cash today for a larger amount of equity. Can you just remember those 4? Because if you remember those 4, you'll make all the money you can spend. As long as you can see and implement the exit. 60-second pre-screening. And this is very important, that you master this, and frankly, it's worthy of your practice. And you won't take long. It won't be long before you'll get it. You got all the facts on the house. Pat Live has taken all the information and they've faxed you or emailed you the information sheets. And you're ready to call the seller because you see a prospect. Here's the speech. Here's your elevator speech. John, and by the way, don't call people by their last name. What you want to do is try to develop a friendly, personal relationship as quickly as you can. I don't care who they are. I don't address them by their last name. I address them by their first name. There might be an exception to that rule, and I'm going to tell you the exception. You old people are going to like it, you young people aren't. I don't like young punk kids calling me by my first name when they don't even know me. And I hate it when they call me buddy. I ain't your buddy. I don't even know you. A little bit of respect, properly applied, won't hurt anything. Okay? So, you're young and it's obviously you're young. Maybe you should call them by their last name. But hey, when you get up with a little bit of age, you have the right to address anybody by their first name. I don't care who they are. And I don't care how rich they are either. They don't bother me any. I call them by their first name. If they don't like it, tough. Called Donald Trump by his first name. When I met Donald, I didn't say Mr. Trump. I said Donald. He expected me to, actually. He expected everybody to call him Donald because that's kind of, he is the Donald, isn't he? Huh? Yeah. Now, I'm sure the people working for him call him Mr. Trump. Well, hey, he ain't cut no paycheck to me, so I don't care what he thinks what I call him, John, it looks like I can buy your house and close it within a few days. Can you? You sure can? Wait a minute. It takes longer than that to get a loan. But you ain't getting a loan. You're taking over the debt, remember? It looks like I can buy your house and close it within a few days. I'll take over your payments and start making them when you and I agree, and do so until your house is paid off sometime in the future. Now, do you notice how I'm getting the benefits out there ahead of the expected response to my question? Try to learn to give them a reason to say yes before you ask them to say yes. I'll cover your closing costs and you can move whenever you're ready, but the only way I can buy it is if the loan stays in your name until I pay it off. Will that keep you awake at night? That is very close to what I say. And if it's very close to what you say, don't memorize it word for word. Just say it. Say it in your own way. It doesn't matter. Because that one phrase is the difference between whether you've got a suspect or a prospect. That one answer will determine whether you're going to go forward or not, won't it? Because if they're not going to let you take over the debt, you're probably not going to buy their house. If they are going to let you take over their debt, now's the time to know. On the telephone, 10 seconds. If the answer is yes, it will keep me awake at night. Well, okay, let me know if things change. If the answer is no, all right, I'll come look. And if we like each other, well, I'll come look. But before I do, a couple more questions. Number one, are you married? Folks, you do not want to go to somebody's house that's married without both spouses present. You are wasting your trip. You need both signatures to get a contract, and you need both to agree. And there's no way one spouse is going to explain this stuff to another spouse after you're gone. Counterproductive. Do not go. Wait till they're both there, unless they're in a heated battle. If they're getting a divorce and they don't want to talk to each other and they don't even live in the same house, obviously you can't get them both together. You might not survive it. You got to get them to them one at a time. But you need them both present. And don't go until they are. Secondly, you need to do a little bit more pre-screening here with a very, very simple question. If I come out today and I like what I see, are you and Mary ready to sell me the house today and get the paperwork done while I'm there? Don't you want to know that? Or are you just going to go out and waste your trip because they can't make a decision? I'm going to deal with people who can make a decision. If they can't, I got no time to waste on them. If they come back and say, well, no, we're just considering selling right now. Or we're just analyzing our prospects. All right, well, go analyze them and let me know when you're done. I don't have time to come out and take a look at your house if you're not ready to sell your house. When you're ready to sell your house and you want to sell it to a real buyer, not a mouthpiece, give me a call. Till then, I can't come. They call that pre-screening. Oh, yeah. I'm ready to sell today. All right. Then I'll make an appointment and I'll go see them. But I want them to commit to me that if I like what I see and they like me, we're going to get the paperwork done while I'm there. If I don't get that commitment, I'm not going. You will for 90 days. And then you'll get it out of your system and you will quickly learn, geez, look at all them trips I've wasted. Look at all those people that I've talked to no avail because I didn't do a little bit more questioning on the front end. You see this 60-second pre-screening script? It should be by your telephone till you don't need it anymore. And truthfully, here's reality. You go send out 300 or 400 letters in a week. You get 10, 15, 20, 30 people to call back. There ain't but a few of those going to creep through and even got a house for sale, depending on what list you send to. And there's only a few of those that are worthy of you having this conversation with. So you're only going to be having this conversation 2, 3, 4 times a week, maybe. And you're going to be having it with people who've passed the pre-screening test and you've got information that leads you to believe that they're prospects before you even call them and get to this point. Because so far, all we've done is order somebody to mail letters. And somebody else is taking the phone calls and then sending them to us. And we're pre-screening them in our PJs or with coffee. And there's only a few going to sift and sort their way through. So 3 or 4 times a week, I'm going to have this conversation. And after I have this conversation, I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to go out. I'm going to buy 1 or 2 houses a week based on the few who crept through. And if I don't, next week I'm mailing more letters until I get it fixed. Your posture. It'll take some work. Some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting. If you quit trying to please everybody you come across, your life will become so much simpler by only dealing with those who want to deal with you. I don't care what business you're in. You cannot make everybody happy. You cannot work with everybody you run across. In the restaurant business, you must decide who is your target market. If you're serving fine food on white tablecloths, it ain't teenagers, because it ain't round with a hamburger in the middle. If you're serving pizza in a restaurant that's got Xbox machines, it ain't old people who don't know what Xbox means. If you're buying houses from sellers, they either want to sell or they need to sell. If they need to sell, they must be willing to work with you, or you can't help them. And you must learn to get those you can't help out of your face quickly, because they will literally suck the life juices out of you if you let them. They'll absorb your time, your energy. They'll steal your dreams. They will convince you it's all your fault, that you're doing something wrong, and there's something wrong with you. If you deal with the right people, they'll do what you ask them to do. You'll get it done, and you'll make money, because you have come to the clear understanding you can't serve everyone. We at Global Publishing can't serve everyone who comes into our systems. We can't be all things to all people. We can't train people for free, even though most would like that. We have an overhead, we have a staff, we have expenses. We have to actually have money come through the front door to keep the doors open. Some people just don't get that. They think that life's free and everything in life is free, and they get upset because we're not bowing down and catering to their wishes for nothing. So be it. It's called pre-screening. No matter what business you're in, no matter what you do, you can only serve the minority who want to do business with you and that you want to do business with them. And as soon as you get that in your head, it makes it a lot easier for you to whack people who want retail price for their properties, knowing crystal clear there's just nothing you can do for them. You might like them, you just can't do business with them. Huge mistake. You're not smart enough, nor are you qualified enough to make decisions for others. Your job is to make opportunity available. Their job is to pass or play. The seller will decide what's best for them. You cannot. Just because you may not be willing to leave a loan in your name doesn't mean that's the best thing for your seller. If you try to think for others and withhold an offer for a quick exit because you prejudge their response, you won't do them any good, you won't do you any good, and you will not make a nickel. You may have trouble accepting why people do the things they do in the beginning, but you've got to get over it. Because if you don't, you won't be buying many houses. Why do people kill themselves on drugs? You wouldn't. Why do they murder other people? You wouldn't. Why do parents abandon their children? Why? Why do people leave the loan in their own name and give away free equity? It's not for you to say. And it's not for you to prejudge. You're in the business of providing opportunity. Those who want that opportunity are thrilled to work with you. You're doing them a favor by allowing them that opportunity. You're providing an easy exit. And they're either going to take you up on your offer or they're not. You're giving them an easy way out. You're helping them get their life back. You give them peace of mind. They get debt relief. And please remember, they called you. They asked you. You didn't call them. If you did, it's because they advertised in a public marketplace that they wanted you to call them. They're chasing you. You're not chasing them. They'll make the decisions to sell based on the information you provide them or not. And then you will put it in writing that they agree and that they understand the risk of making that decision. That is the absolute best you can do. And every time you buy a house, they got what they wanted, you got what you wanted, the bank got what they wanted, the buyer got what he or she wanted, and everybody wins, nobody loses. And I'm going to tell you that in all my years of experience, the thing that stops some people most is they just can't get over the fact that people will give away their house and leave the loan in their own name. The very first one you get, that process will begin to heal. But I'm going to suggest to you that you do not waste opportunity because you assume that other people won't do what you wouldn't. And many of you in the room have. And some of you will in the future, even knowing what you know. And if it solves your problem, so be it. Every time you take over a debt and keep your promise, you have provided a service to the public. You help them get out of a mess and get their life back. So it's nothing for you to be ashamed of. It's something for you to be proud of that you're in a position to do it. And you will be surprised how many people will come to you and thank you and hug you and send you gifts for years in the future and cards and letters because you helped them when they needed help the most. You will do nothing illegal, immoral, or unethical. You'll provide opportunity. Those who want it will take it, and those who don't will move on, and so will you. And so goes life, and so goes business. So do not let your preconceived notions or your hidden apprehensions stop you from providing other people that opportunity.